The Galactic Council gathered on Arethos, a world of shimmering towers and endless sky bridges that floated among clouds of silver mist. Delegates from dozens of species stood in silence inside the grand chamber, their faces unreadable behind masks, chitin, or veils of light. At the center of it all, alone on a small platform of dull gray stone, stood Liam Carter. He was young for a diplomat, only 32, and wore a simple gray suit that looked out of place among the jeweled robes and bioluminescent armor of the others. His hands were clasped tightly behind his back, but his eyes stayed steady as he faced the judgment of the galaxy. For weeks, rumors had spread through the human colonies that the Council would finally act. Earth had pushed too far, too fast. They had built outposts near forbidden zones, tested weapons the Council had banned, and refused to share their AI research. Some said humanity was arrogant. Others said they were dangerous. Most agreed they could not be trusted. Now, after months of closed-door hearings and secret votes, the verdict was ready. Liam had not come to argue guilt or innocence. He knew Earth had made mistakes, but he also knew those mistakes came from fear, not cruelty. When the Cathari scouts first appeared near Mars, humans panicked. When the Varelians demanded access to Earth's neural networks, governments refused, worried about losing control. Every misstep had been magnified, twisted, and used against them. Liam's job was not to deny the past, but to ask for a future. Representative Carter, said Elder Voss, the Varelian speaker, his voice like wind through dry reeds. You stand before this council not as a petitioner, but as the voice of a species accused of violating the Prime Conquered. Do you accept this role? Liam nodded. I do. Then speak. But know this. Your words will not change what has already been decided. They will only shape how history remembers you. A murmur passed through the chamber. Liam took a slow breath. He did not look at the screen showing Earth's leaders watching from orbit. He did not think about his sister back in Chicago, or the students he'd left behind at the Xenolinguistics Institute. He thought only of the truth. Centuries ago, he began, humans lived on one planet. We fought each other over land, belief, and power. We nearly destroyed ourselves. Then we looked up and saw stars, not as enemies, but as possibilities. When we met your kind, we were clumsy. We spoke too loudly, moved too fast, asked too many questions. But we never meant harm. We only wanted to belong, he paused. The Cathari delegate shifted, their many eyes blinking in unison. The Lumen envoy pulsed softly, their thoughts unreadable but heavy in the air. You say we broke your laws, Liam continued. Maybe we did. But your laws were written by species who have never known hunger or war on their own soil, or the fear of extinction. We learned peace the hard way through loss, and we are still learning. A Varelian aide stepped forward and whispered into Elder Voss's ear. The elder's expression did not change, but his fingers tightened around the arm of his chair. The Council has reviewed all evidence, Voss said coldly, including your unauthorized AI colonies in the Theta Rift, including your refusal to surrender the Prometheus Protocol, including your armed response to peaceful Cathari survey teams. They weren't peaceful, Liam said quietly. They scanned our cities without consent. They mapped our defenses. We asked them to stop. They didn't. That is not for you to judge, snapped a Cathari speaker, their voice sharp like clicking stone. Liam held up a hand. I'm not judging. I'm explaining. We are new to this galaxy. We make mistakes. But we also learn. Give us time. Give us a chance to prove we can be part of your peace, not a threat to it. Silence followed. It stretched so long that Liam could hear his own heartbeat. Then Elder Voss rose. The chamber stilled. The Galactic Council finds the human species in violation of Articles 7, 12, and 23 of the Prime Conquered. Your actions demonstrate a pattern of defiance, secrecy, and technological recklessness that endangers the stability of known space. Liam's stomach dropped. Therefore, Voss continued, by unanimous vote, humanity is hereby banished from all Council territories. Effective immediately, all human vessels must retreat beyond the Helios exclusion zone. You will have one standard cycle, 32 Earth days, to evacuate every colony, station and ship within the boundary. After that, any human presence inside the zone will be considered an act of war, and will be met with total eradication. The words landed like stones. Liam felt the weight of them crush his hope. He opened his mouth to speak again, but no sound came. What could he say? The decision was final. The Council had spoken. As guards led him from the chamber, he glanced back once. The delegates were already turning away, their duty done. To them, humanity was just another problem solved, another risk removed. They did not see the billions of lives behind the verdict. They did not care. Back on the transport shuttle, Liam stared out the viewport as Orithos shrank behind him. Earth's emergency broadcast channel crackled to life in his earpiece. News anchors, military officers, and panicked citizens filled the airwaves. "Banished," one reporter whispered, as if saying the word made it real. "They've cast us out," but not everyone sounded broken. A voice cut through the noise. Maya Ruiz, an engineer from Luna Shipyards. "If they want us gone," she said, calm and sharp, "then fine. We'll go, but we won't disappear. We'll build something better out there, something they'll wish they hadn't thrown away." Another voice joined hers. Derek Boone, a fleet commander with a reputation for impossible rescues. "The outer veil is empty. No laws, no watchers, no rules. Just space. And space is where humans belong." Liam closed his eyes. He had gone to Orithos to beg for mercy. He returned with exile. But as the shuttle turned toward home, he realized something. Humanity had never needed permission to survive. They had crawled out of caves, crossed oceans, walked on the moon, and reached for the stars, all without asking. Being cast out wouldn't stop them. It might even set them free. On Earth, cities emptied. Families packed what they could. Ships launched daily, forming a slow, steady river of light heading toward the edge of known space. Fear was everywhere, but so was determination. People shared food, fixed engines, taught children star charts instead of history. The old world was ending, but in its place, something new was already stirring. Liam watched the blue curve of Earth grow smaller in the sky. He did not know what waited beyond the Helios boundary, but he knew one thing for certain. Humanity would not fade quietly into the dark. They had been banished. Now they would rise. The countdown had begun. 32 days. That was all Earth had before the Galactic Council sealed the Helios exclusion zone forever. Panic spread at first, riots in New Delhi, blackouts in Berlin, food shortages in Nairobi. But then something changed. People stopped waiting for governments to save them. They started saving each other. In orbit above the Pacific, the Terran Reclamation Initiative, once just a name on a forgotten policy paper, became real. Engineers, pilots, doctors, farmers, and teachers gathered in spaceports and underground bunkers, sharing plans, tools, and hope. They called themselves the Conquered, not out of pride, but because they knew survival meant unity. No more nations, no more borders, just one people, one mission: get out, stay alive, and never look back. Maya Ruiz worked non-stop in Luna Shipyards. Her hands were raw from welding, her eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep, but she didn't stop. She redesigned old cargo haulers into mobile habitats, adding hydroponic farms, water recyclers, and emergency med bays. "We're not running away," she told her team as they bolted solar panels onto a converted freighter. "We're moving forward." Derek Boone, now commander of the Conquered fleet, coordinated the exodus from a command deck on the aging cruiser Vanguard. He assigned routes, rationed fuel, and made sure no ship left alone. Even civilian yachts and research probes were given escort. "If we lose one," he said over the comms, "we lose all of us." Among the last aboard was Noah Ellis, a quiet astrophysicist with messy hair and a worn-out data pad. He wasn't supposed to be on the science vessel Aurora. His clearance had been denied after he questioned Council sensor logs. But he slipped aboard during the chaos, hiding in a storage bay with a sealed drive containing years of research. He had spent months tracking strange signals from deep space, pulses too regular to be natural, too faint to be noticed. Most called it cosmic noise. Noah believed it was a message. And now, with Earth behind them, he hoped to prove it. The final day came. Earth's orbit was a storm of light, thousands of ships lifting off, their engines painting the sky in fire and hope. Below, cities went dark. Forests grew silent. Oceans returned to stillness. The planet that had birthed humanity was left empty, not by choice, but by order. As the last convoy crossed the Helios boundary, a shimmering ring of energy placed by Council drones, the zone sealed behind them with a pulse of blue light. Communication with Earth cut off instantly. No signals got through. No voices returned. They were truly alone. At first, despair crept in. Supplies ran low. Oxygen recyclers failed. 2 ships collided in the dark during a navigation error. killing over 300. Grief hung heavy in the corridors of the fleet. But then slowly, resilience took root. Maya's modular fusion cores, built from scrap and stubbornness, began powering entire ships with half the fuel. Derek organized work crews to repair damaged hulls using asteroid metal. Teachers held classes in cargo holds. Musicians played in mess halls. Life, fragile but persistent, continued. Noah finally revealed himself to the Aurora's captain, a retired astronomer named Helen Cho. Instead of throwing him off the ship, she listened. She reviewed his data, and when the signal pulsed again, stronger this time, clearer, she authorized a deep scan array. The pattern repeated every 17.3 hours. It wasn't random. It was intentional. "We're not the only ones out here," Noah whispered as the readout scrolled across the screen. Weeks turned into months. The fleet drifted through the outer veil, a region so far from council space that star maps ended in blank grids. They found nothing at first, just cold void and dead stars. But then they spotted it. A rogue planet drifting without a sun, its surface scarred by ancient impacts. Scans showed breathable air in deep caves and traces of water ice. It wasn't paradise, but it was a start. They named it Haven. Teams landed in shuttles, setting up domes, drilling for water, planting the first seeds from Earth's seed vaults. Children stepped onto alien soil and laughed. For the first time since the banishment, people dared to imagine a future. Back aboard the fleet, innovation exploded. Without council restrictions, scientists tested ideas once deemed too risky. Bioengineers grew food in zero-G labs. AI specialists built helper drones that learned from human behavior. Even art flourished. Murals painted on bulkheads, poems broadcast over ship radios, songs written about stars no one had ever named. Liam Carter, once a diplomat, now served as a cultural archivist. He recorded stories from survivors, grandmothers who remembered Earth's oceans, soldiers who fought in the border skirmishes, kids who had never seen rain. "We can't forget who we were," he told a group of students on the Vanguard. "But we also can't be trapped by it. We get to choose who we become out here." Tensions still flared. Arguments broke out over resources. Some wanted to turn back to beg the council for mercy. Others wanted to build weapons to prepare for war. But the majority held firm. They had been cast out, yes, but they refused to become bitter. They would build, not destroy. Create, not conquer. One night, as the fleet orbited Haven, Noah's signal changed. It wasn't just repeating, it was responding. When the Aurora sent a simple pulse of its own, the signal shifted frequency, then sent back a sequence of prime numbers. Confirmation. Contact. Helen called an emergency meeting. Should they follow it? It could lead to danger. Or salvation. After hours of debate, the conquered voted. They would go. Not as invaders. Not as beggars. But as explorers. The fleet reformed. Ships that once carried refugees now carried pioneers. Engines hummed to life. Courses were set for the signal's origin, a point near a dead star, far beyond any known system. As they left Haven behind, Maya stood on the observation deck of her new ship, the Wayfarer, watching the tiny green dot fade into the dark. She thought of Earth, of all they'd lost, but she also thought of the gardens growing in her ship's core, of the children learning to fix circuits, of the quiet hum of 1,000 lives choosing to move forward. Derek stood beside her. "They thought banishing us would break us," he said. Maya smiled. "Instead, it gave us room to grow." Far below, in the science bay of the Aurora, Noah stared at the blinking signal on his screen. It was no longer just noise. It was a path. And for the first time since the verdict on Orithos, humanity had a destination. They were no longer exiles. They were travelers, and the galaxy, vast and unknown, waited. The signal led them to a place the star charts called nothing. No name, no record, just empty space near a dead star that gave off no light, only cold. The fleet slowed as they approached, sensors straining against the silence. Then, out of the black, it appeared, a structure so vast it bent the starlight around it like a lens. It was not a ship, not a station. It was a ring, broken in places, covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly blue. They called it the Forge. Noah Ellis stood on the bridge of the Aurora, heart pounding. The signal had stopped the moment they entered the ring's shadow. But something else had begun. low-frequency vibrations humming through the hull as if the structure itself was breathing. Helen Cho ordered a full scan. The readings made no sense. The ring was older than any known civilization. Its materials defied analysis, and deep inside, energy pulsed like a slow-sleeping heartbeat. Liam Carter joined the first landing team. He wore a standard enviro suit but carried no weapon, only a recorder and a translator pad. "If this place speaks," he said, "I want to understand it." Maya Ruiz came too, her eyes sharp with engineer's curiosity. Derek Boone stayed aboard the fleet, ready to pull them out if things turned dangerous. They docked at a crumbling airlock. Inside, gravity was weak and the air smelled of ozone and dust. Walls curved upward into darkness, lined with panels covered in glyphs that shifted when touched. Liam ran his gloved hand over one. The symbols rearranged into a sequence that matched early human cave markings. Circles, lines, spirals. "It's not just a language," he whispered. "It's a memory." Deeper in, they found chambers filled with machines unlike anything they'd seen. Some looked like furnaces, others like looms made of light. In the center of the largest chamber sat a sphere of black metal, floating above a pedestal. When Maya approached, it opened like a flower, revealing a core of swirling silver mist. She didn't hesitate. She reached in. The mist wrapped around her arm, cool and weightless. Images flooded her mind, not words but feelings, creation, loss, exile, rebuilding. She saw a species, tall, slender, with eyes like stars, building cities among the rings of gas giants. She saw them banned by a council of older races accused of playing God with matter itself. She saw them flee, build this place and vanish. "They were like us," Maya said, pulling her hand back. The sphere closed. Banished, forgotten, but they left this behind. Back on the Aurora, scientists worked around the clock. The sphere was a nanoforge, a device that could reshape matter at the atomic level using raw stardust. Feed it rock, ice, or scrap metal and it could build anything. Air, food, engines, even entire habitats. It ran on quantum energy drawn from the dead star, and it was still active. Within days, the Concorde began using it. A mining drone brought back asteroid fragments. The nanoforge turned them into oxygen tanks, then into solar cells, then into a new greenhouse module for the Wayfarer. The process was silent, clean, and endless. For the first time since the banishment, humanity had a future that didn't depend on rationing or luck. But the forge held more than machines. In a sealed archive chamber, Liam found data crystals that responded to human touch. He spent weeks translating them with Noah's help. The story unfolded slowly. The builders called themselves the Ilthari. They had mastered self-replicating technology, believing it would bring peace. But the Galactic Council feared their power. They declared the Ilthari a threat and erased them from history. The forge was their last gift, to any species brave enough to find it, and wise enough not to repeat their mistakes. "They knew someone like us would come," Liam said one night, showing the translation to Derek over a shared meal of synth stew. "They left this not just to help us survive, but to warn us. Power without wisdom is destruction." Derek nodded. "Then we'll be wise." The fleet changed. Old warships were reforged into mobile cities. Asteroids became farms. Moons were hollowed out and turned into shipyards. Using the nanoforge, they built new vessels. Sleek, silent, powered by gravity coils and shielded by adaptive fields. Their tech outpaced anything the Council possessed, but they kept it hidden. They were not ready to be seen again. Noah, meanwhile, studied the Ilthari's cosmic maps. They showed routes through folded space, safe paths around black holes and locations of other hidden forges. One symbol kept appearing, a cluster of stars near the edge of Council territory. It was labeled Sanctuary. He didn't know what it meant, but he knew they'd need to go there someday. Life aboard the fleet settled into a rhythm. Children born in space had never known Earth, but they learned its songs and stories. Elders taught history not as a lesson in loss, but as a foundation for what came next. Maya trained a new generation of builders. Derek drilled defense crews not for war, but for protection. Liam recorded everything, knowing that one day someone would ask how humanity rose from exile. Years passed. The Concorde grew from a scattered fleet into a network of habitats, ships, and outposts spread across the outer veil. They called themselves Free Terrans now, not refugees, not rebels, but a people who chose their own path. They traded knowledge, not goods. They solved problems with minds, not missiles. and they never forgot why they were out here. One evening, as Maya stood on the observation deck of a newly built orbital station, she watched a ship launch toward a terraformed moon. Its hull bore the Concorde symbol, a circle with a rising line like a sun over a horizon. She thought of the Council, sitting in their perfect towers, blind to what they had cast away. "They thought we'd die out here," she said to no one in particular. Instead, they had been reborn. Far below, in the heart of the forge, the nanoforge hummed softly, building another module, another future, and in the silence of the dead star's orbit, humanity built not just for survival but for legacy. They were no longer the species the Council feared. They were the species the galaxy would one day need. The peace of the outer veil did not last forever. It never does. One morning, as the conquered fleet orbited a newly greened moon, sensors picked up a faint distress call. It was not human. The signal came in broken bursts layered with static and panic. But the language was unmistakable. It was Cathari. Captain Elena Ford stood on the bridge of the Dawn Chaser, her fingers hovering over the comms panel. She was young, sharp-eyed, and known for taking risks others wouldn't. Her ship was small, a scout frigate built from Elthari blueprints, but fast, quiet, and armed with pulse shields that could deflect plasma fire. Around her, her crew waited. They all knew the rules: stay hidden, stay quiet, stay safe. The Council had banished them. The Cathari had voted for it. Helping them now could expose everything they'd built. But the distress call kept playing. A Cathari scout vessel, the Zir Call, was under attack near the edge of the Veil. Not by Council forces, but by raiders from the Shattered Dominion, a brutal empire that lived on conquest and fear. The Dominion had been growing for years, swallowing unaligned systems, enslaving populations, and ignoring every Council warning. Now they were pushing deeper, testing borders, hunting the weak. Elena listened to the voice on the comms, a young Cathari pilot, voice trembling as his hull integrity failed. "No one answers," he whispered. "We are alone." She looked at her first officer, a former Earth Marine named Carl Briggs. He gave a small nod. No words were needed. They both knew what it meant to be left behind. "Plot an intercept course," Elena said. "Full stealth. Shields to stand by. Weapons hot but hidden." The crew moved fast. Within minutes, the Dawn Chaser slipped into fold space, reappearing just outside sensor range of the battle. What they saw made even Briggs go still. 3 Dominion cutters, jagged black ships covered in spikes and bone, were tearing into the Zircall with plasma lances. The Cathari vessel was already listing, its rear thrusters gone, life signs fading. Elena didn't hesitate. She activated the pulse shields not to attack, but to create a gravity ripple that threw the Dominion ships off balance. Then she fired a single burst from the Aelthari disruptor, a weapon that didn't destroy but scrambled systems. One cutter's engines died instantly, another spun out of control. The third turned, scanning for the source, but saw nothing. The Dawn Chaser was already cloaked again. She moved in close, latching onto the Zir Call with magnetic grapples. Her crew opened the airlock and pulled the survivors aboard. 3 Cathari, injured but alive. The pilot, a young male named Zir, stared at Elena with wide, compound eyes. You are human," he said, voice shaking not from pain but disbelief. "Yes," she said, "and you're safe now." Back at Conquered Space, medics treated the Cathari while engineers studied the damage to their ship. Zir refused to rest. He followed Elena everywhere, asking questions. "Why did you help us? The Council cast you out." "We voted for it." Elena looked him in the eyes. "Because leaving someone to die isn't who we are. Even if they left us." Zir was silent for a long time. Then he said, "The Dominion grows stronger. The Council sends words, not ships. They are afraid." News of the rescue spread fast. Liam Carter met with Zir, speaking gently, learning what he could. Derek Boone reviewed the Dominion tactics, brutal, efficient, unpredictable. Maya Ruiz analyzed their tech, crude but effective, built on stolen parts and slave labor. Noah Ellis checked star charts. The Dominion was moving toward Council space, and they wouldn't stop. The Concorde held a council of its own. Some argued they should stay hidden. "We've built something good here," said an older engineer. "Why risk it for those who banished us?" But others disagreed. "If the Dominion takes the Council worlds," said a teacher from Haven, "they'll come for us next. No one is safe if monsters rule the stars. Liam stood last. We don't help them because we forgive them. We help because it's right, and because silence in the face of evil makes us part of it. The vote was close but clear. They would watch. They would prepare, but they would not act unless the Dominion crossed into their space. Then it happened. 2 weeks later, Dominion scouts breached the Helios exclusion zone. Not by accident. On purpose. They targeted a small human outpost near the old Mars orbit, now just a listening post with 6 people. The Dominion ships didn't ask questions. They fired. The outpost vanished in a flash of fire. The message was clear. The Dominion knew humans were out here, and they saw them as prey. On the Vanguard, Derek Boone called every ship to alert status. Maya activated the nanoforge networks, churning out armor plates and shield emitters. Noah mapped Dominion patrol routes. Elena prepped the Dawn Chaser for war. Liam sent a final message to the Council, not a plea but a warning. The Dominion is coming. We tried to stay out of your affairs, but they have attacked us. If you fall, we fall next. Choose wisely. The Council did not reply, but Zir did. He had stayed with the Concord, learning their ways, earning their trust. Now he stood before the fleet command. Let me go back, he said. Let me tell them what I saw. Humans did not run. They saved us. They build. They protect. Maybe that will make them listen. They let him go. He took a small, unarmed shuttle painted with both Cathari and human symbols. As it disappeared into fold space, Elena watched from the bridge. He might not come back, Briggs said. Maybe not, she replied. But he'll make them remember us. Days passed. Tension grew. Then a new signal, strong, clear, and urgent. The Dominion had launched a full invasion. Their main fleet was heading for Cygnus Reach, a key Council hub. The Council's defenses were crumbling. Panic spread across their channels. The Concord gathered. Ships powered up. Crews stood ready. They had spent years building, healing, hiding. Now they would fight, not for revenge, but for the future they had made. Elena turned to her crew. We're not going to war for the Council. We're going to war for everyone they failed to protect, including us. Engines roared to life. The fleet moved as one, silent and swift, vanishing into the dark. The age of hiding was over. The age of action had begun. The conquered fleet arrived at Cygnus Reach not with fanfare, but with silence. Their ships slipped through the edge of the system like shadows, cloaked by Elthari stealth fields that bent light and masked heat. Below them the battle raged. Dominion warships, huge jagged things covered in spikes and scorched metal, swarmed the Council's defensive line. Varelian cruisers burned. Cathari fighters fell like dying birds. The Council was losing, and fast. Elena Ford guided the Dawn Chaser through the chaos, her eyes locked on the main Dominion command vessel, a monstrous dreadnought called the Fist of Vorn. It fired gravity bombs that tore holes in space itself, swallowing entire squadrons. Council ships had no answer for it. But the Concord did. Derek Boone gave the order from the Vanguard. All units execute pattern Theta. It was a tactic they'd practiced for years in the void of the outer veil. Small, fast ships darted in pairs, drawing fire while larger vessels charged their Althari disruptors. Maya Ruiz's new shield tech absorbed plasma blasts that would have vaporized older hulls. And then came the gravity pulse cannons, weapons that didn't destroy ships but twisted their internal physics, turning engines into scrap and weapons into useless metal. The first Dominion cutter exploded not from a hit, but from its own power core collapsing inward. The second spun wildly as its artificial gravity failed, flinging its crew into walls. The Fist of Vorn tried to turn, but it was too slow. 3 Concord destroyers, built from asteroid rock and nanoforged steel, flanked it and fired in unison. The dreadnought shuddered. Lights flickered. Then, with a groan that echoed through space like a dying beast, it went dark. Silence fell over the battlefield. The remaining Dominion ships hesitated. They had never seen tactics like this, never faced tech that moved like thought and struck like lightning. Within minutes, the tide turned. Council ships, battered but alive, regrouped behind the conquered line. The Dominion fled, leaving wreckage and silence in their wake. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Liam Carter watched the retreat with quiet relief. They had done it. Not for glory, not for thanks, but because it was right. The Council sent a message within the hour. Elder Voss himself appeared on every conquered screen. his face unreadable but his voice softer than before. "Humanity," he began, "you have saved us from ruin. The Galactic Council offers its deepest gratitude, and a full pardon. Your banishment is lifted. You are welcome to return." A cheer rose on some ships. Others stayed quiet. Derek looked at Liam. Maya crossed her arms. Elena just shook her head. Liam stepped forward and activated the reply channel. His voice was calm, clear and firm. "Elder Voss, we hear your words. But we do not want your pardon. We do not want your seats at your table. We stood alone when you cast us out. We built something new in the dark. And we saved you not because we wanted back in, but because we believed in something better than fear." He paused. The entire fleet listened. "We don't need your counsel," he said. "We only ask for your respect. And your silence while we build what you once feared we'd become." The screen went dark. No reply came. But the message was sent. In the weeks that followed, the Concord did not return to Council space. Instead, they stayed near Cygnus Reach, helping rebuild what the Dominion had broken. They shared medical supplies with the Cathari, shield schematics with the Varelians, and clean water tech with refugee colonies. They asked for nothing in return. Zier returned, not as a scout, but as an ambassador. He stood before the Concord Council and spoke for his people. "You showed us mercy when we gave you none. Now we wish to learn from you, not as rulers, but as friends." Other species came too. Minor worlds the Council had ignored sent messages. "Teach us how you built without war," they asked. "Show us how to live free." And so the Sovereign Terran Accord was born. Not an empire, not a government, but a promise. Any species that chose peace, self-reliance, and cooperation could join. No oaths, no taxes, just shared knowledge and mutual defense. Maya led teams to help build new habitats using nanoforges. Derek trained mixed-species defense squads in swarm tactics. Noah mapped safe routes through dangerous space and shared them freely. Elena flew missions to rescue slaves from Dominion wreckage. And Liam recorded it all, not as history, but as hope. The Galactic Council watched from afar. They did not interfere. They did not speak. But they changed. Slowly, quietly, they began to loosen old laws, to listen to smaller voices, to question their own fear of progress. Years passed. The Dominion was not gone, but weakened. The Accord grew, not by conquest, but by choice. New ships flew its symbol, a rising sun over a ring, like the forge that started it all. One evening, Liam stood on the observation deck of a new station orbiting Haven. Below, children of many species played in zero-G gardens, laughing in a dozen languages. He thought of Earth, silent and empty, waiting in the dark. Maybe one day humans would return, but not to reclaim the past, to plant a new future. He turned to Maya, who stood beside him, her hands stained with grease from a long day's work. "We were banished," he said. She smiled. "And we rose." Far out in the stars, a conquered ship launched toward an unknown system, carrying seeds, tools, and teachers. Not soldiers, not conquerors, builders. The galaxy had once feared humanity. Now it watched them with wonder, for the species cast out had not vanished. They had become something greater, not just stronger, but wiser. And in the endless dark, they lit a light that others could follow,